Hi, it's Richard Cooper here again. I've got Doug Hoyes of Hoyes, Michaelos & Associates on with me from Cambridge. He's a bankruptcy trustee. We're going to talk a little bit today about credit counseling and debt management companies with their debt consultants. I've got a lot of experience with credit counselors. We've been dealing with clients that have spoken to them over the years. They're structured either as nonprofit or for-profit. At the end of the day, they charge a fee. So even if they are structured as nonprofit, it doesn't mean that they're free. I've done case studies on credit counseling versus our debt settlement program, and I've learned that their cost is considerably higher and the program length is considerably longer to get out of credit card debt. They also receive what's called a fair share payment from the banks. It's about 23.5%, and they also charge about a 10% fee, so the total cost with credit counseling is about 33.5%. Now, I look at it as a kinder, more friendlier collection agency for the banks. The banks tend to refer a lot of people to credit counselors to help them get out of debt. You can read between the lines and try to figure out why. I'm going to hand it off to Doug. Doug, why don't you talk to me about what you know between credit counselors and the debt management folks or the debt consultants that you've talked about in the past?
Yeah, well, what you said about credit counselors is true. I mean, in my experience, and I've worked with lots of them over the years, and the vast majority of them I really get along with well. I think they are kinder and gentler, and in a lot of ways that's a good thing. If you don't know how to manage your money, if you need help with budgeting, then they can sit down and meet with you one-on-one. They run seminars. I think that's all very good, because one of the things we don't have much of in this country is credit education. So I've certainly got no problem with that. My advice when dealing with any kind of financial advisor is to make sure they are explaining to you all your options. So what the not-for-profit credit counselors do are debt management plans, where they negotiate with your creditors so that you will repay your debts generally in full over a 2 to 5 year period. So if you have $60,000 worth in debts with the big banks, the big credit card companies, and so on, they can work out a plan where you pay $1,000 a month for 5 years to pay them off. Generally, the interest rate is reduced or eliminated. So if what you need is a break on the interest rate, and if you can afford those kind of payments, it's not a bad solution. But there are obviously other solutions as well that may work better in your situation, whether it's debt settlement or proposal or bankruptcy or whatever. So I think the number one thing is to make sure you understand all of your options. And if all they're explaining to you is a debt management plan, ask them more questions. The people that we deal with, the not-for-profit credit counselors that we deal with, explain all the options, so I don't have a problem with it. Now, you asked me what's the difference between those guys and all those guys you see advertising heavily. They've got their ads on the buses and the streetcars and everything. Well, I guess in some cases maybe there's not a huge difference. Probably the big difference would have to be with upfront fees. So how much are they going to charge you up front when you go in to see them? With most of the not-for-profit credit counselors, you don't have to write a big check the day you walk in the door. With some of these other places, you do. So that would be my first question with whoever it is I'm going to deal with. How much is it going to cost? How much do I have to pay you? How much is going to the creditors? I'd kind of like to know that as well. How long is it going to take for this plan to be approved and in place? And then I can compare all my options.
Let me ask this question, Doug. I've heard stories about people responding to ads on subways and buses and 24 classifieds and that sort of stuff, even on Kijiji and Craigslist, where they respond to a debt relief ad and they end up sitting in front of somebody that really profiles them financially, looks at their income and expenses. To my understanding, they're not really qualified to do much there anyway. And they'll charge a huge upfront fee, anywhere from $500 to about $1,500. And what they'll end up doing is just walking that person across a hallway or maybe introducing them to a bankruptcy trustee. Now, isn't it true that the consumer can really save a ton of money and time just by seeing the bankruptcy trustee first?
Yes, and that's why whoever you go meet with should spell out all the options for you. And if one of the options is a bankruptcy, I agree. Go talk to the bankruptcy guy. I've heard tons of stories exactly the way you just described it, where people have paid a $1,500 fee. And I haven't heard this story just once. I've heard it dozens and dozens of times over the years, where they go in, they meet with this debt consultant, they pay them a $1,500 fee to analyze their financial situation, and as soon as they've written that check, the debt consultant says, oh, you know what, you need to talk talk to a bankruptcy trustee. Fortunately, there's one just across the hall. Let me walk you over there. And so next thing you know, you're sitting there going, wait a minute, I didn't want to talk to a trustee. That's why I went and talked to this guy. And now all of a sudden I'm going bankrupt? What happened? And where's my $1,500?
Right.
Yeah, very good question. So whoever you're meeting with, ask them what the solution is that they're going to propose and what it's going to cost you.
So if somebody pushes for a huge upfront fee, you want to run away. You don't want to walk away from something like that.
Absolutely. And I think that's the case in any business.
Right.
Until you've actually done something for me, why would I be paying you a huge upfront fee? It makes no sense.
And we talked about this earlier. You know, Google can be your friend. You should look up the company, type in BBB rating after the company name, or company name plus review, or company name plus complaints after that. You'll find a lot of resources. Google can be your friend with that and helping to identify between a good nonprofit credit counselor and a debt management or debt consultant type of company.
Yep, absolutely right. Do your own research. No one else is going to do it for you.
That's great. Thanks, Doug. So that's Doug Hoyes at Hoyes Michaelos and Associates. That's Hoyes.com. Thanks again for your time, Doug.
Thanks, Richard.